Hello, my name is Sierra.
I'm Genesis.
I'm Kendall.
I'm Lupe.
And I'm Daniel. Welcome to Unmasking the Blackening. In today's episode, we're exploring The Blackening, a film that mixes horror and comedy to challenge stereotypes about black characters in media. We'll use Black Performance Theory by Thomas de France to break down how black identity is expressed in performance and how minstrelsy, a form of entertainment that mocked black people, still influences media today. Let's dive into how this movie flips old stereotypes and reclaims black storytelling. This film plays with the common horror movie question. If all characters are black, who dies first? It's a fun but sharp critique of how black people have been portrayed in horror, but underneath the jokes, the film brings up serious issues about race and representation.
All right, I have the film analysis. The Blackening is a horror comedic film that pays homage to movies like Saw, Scary Movie, and Get Out. A group of college friends reunite on Juneteenth in the cabin in the woods. Everything is fine until things take a turn and they are stuck in the game room. They have to start playing the game, The Blackening, to survive and keep their friends safe. In the game, they had to answer black culture questions, and each correct answer they got more time. The last round of the game, it was funny, they said that the black people die always first in horror films. So whoever is the blackest, it isn't a lie. Whoever is the blackest is going to die. They eventually choose the black Trump supporter, who turns out to be the head master of all this chaos. The theme of the movie is black stereotypes. There is a bunch of black stereotypes in the film, as in the glancing of the eye and communicating through that. The game of spades, which is originated in the African American communities, and all the loudness and all the it was just very funny, so many stereotypes. The movie took the joke in many horror films that the black person always dies first, and they completely ran with it. The movie is perfect for comedy and suspense. It's a fun movie altogether.
Yeah, and so a little bit more of like the historical context. We talked about black performance theory in class, and this is used to explain concepts of black identity in different periods of time through performance, and it tends to be very expressive and actionary. There's a Hurston quote in the reading that says, "It springs from the need to communicate beyond the limits of words alone," and I think this is very interesting. And then, and while like body language does also help with conveying how like black identity, I think words do also portray this very well. And Hearst even talks about a little bit about Negro talk being a little bit dramatic, and I think she says that this is a stabilizing point of entry to understanding the expressive aesthetic of black language. I agree with this because we see a lot of black people using AAVE in their language, and it makes up a part of their identity. It's incorporated even in the film, as we see with people with one of the game rounds where they're trying to discuss who is the blackest character, and they resort to talking about who speaks the blackest and who uses the N-word the most as a way to like depict who is the blackest person in the group. So I think dialect and language is very like a big part of black identity. And then we also get a little bit more from DeFrance and Hurston, talking about black performance deriving from its own style of sensibility that undergirds its production. And a black performance answers pressing aesthetic concerns of the communities that engage with it. And this can be done by different ways. A lot of the ways is through satire and using serious topics, being silly and when talking about serious topics. And I think we see this a little bit with a scene where the white sheriff was like, he said something along the lines of, "You guys split up, but you're black," and this is kind of like a stereotype about black people that they never split up when they're in a horror film, right? And I think this is a depiction we see in a lot of films, and it's splitting up is like seen by other groups of people like doing that the most, and so I think this is interesting. We even go a little bit into minstrelsy within the film as a stereotypical depiction of black people, and we see this with the board game, even with the masks that are used by the characters, which remind me a little bit of the time of slavery, where black skin of the enslaved people were used as like for clothing and for furniture, and I just like that mask reminded me in the way that it was stitched together.
Yeah, well, following along with that, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what minstrelsy is. It's a uniquely American form of musical comedy. It emerged in the 1840s, and it's actually one of the foundations for modern live performances. They were usually performed by white men in blackface who imitated African Americans, and they were characterized as lazy, ignorant, and uneducated, and often the only jobs that black actors could get. was participating in these minstrel shows or on shows that depicted them as inferior, such as, the character Mammy. And this stereotype, it's been maintained even in modern media with black characters being presented in either two lights. You can either be violent and criminal or completely assimilated into like what's considered an acceptable culture. And this is mainly due to a lack of black writers, producers, and just people all around behind the scenes who are mostly excluded due to a lack of opportunity or resources. And some examples of this that we see in the movie is there's a caricature in the game. It's a minstrel blackface representation, with the exaggerated big lips and the face painted in kohl.
So scary.
As well as the mask on the killer, which is it was kind of scary, not gonna lie. But it resembles a grotesque black minstrel, and sorry, a lot of these characters, they play into the stereotypes that are set in media. And the tagline of the movie, "We Can't All Die First," it plays into the trope that black characters are usually the first ones to die in horror movies. And a lot of the characters also play into it. Like King, he's a reformed thug. He carries a gun. He's married to a white woman. Namdi, he's the consistent womanizer, and he's, at least the characters in the film, they say he's the blackest because he's from Africa. Shanika, she's the totally stereotypical black lady in TV shows. She's loud, she's aggressive, and she's in your face. And then we also have the stereotype coming from the white cop, Ranger White. He's investigating at the beginning of the film because he's assuming that these black people in the middle of the woods, they're obviously trespassing because he says the hosts only really rent out to white people. And yeah, he plays into these stereotypes a lot.
All right, let's talk about the blackening and how it takes modern black satire to the next level. So this movie doesn't just make fun of horror tropes and completely flips them. It challenges what audience expect from a black-led horror movie, which is something we don't see often. First off, the biggest horror stereotype was the black person always dies first. This movie completely throws it out of the window, and instead of making black characters disposable sidekicks, the blackening puts them front and center and actually gives them hella depth. The characters aren't just the sassy one or the tough one. They all have unique personalities, which is extremely rare in horror movies. And then there's the humor. Comedy is how this movie tackles real issues about race and representation. Like, take The Blackening, the card game, where they were forced to prove who's black enough to survive. The fact that they struggled to name five black horror survivors, that's literally the joke. And it highlights how black characters have historically been treated as expendable in Hollywood. And the questions, like the black Twitter debates and who played light skin and dark skin and Viv and for what seasons, that was crazy. Or sing the second verse of Lift Every Voice and Sing. It's funny because it's real, and there's always that conversation about, like, who is really black enough. And then the way they react to the horror situations is satire, but it's at its best. In typical horror movies, characters make dumb decisions, wandering off alone, ignoring the obvious signs of danger. But in this movie, the characters do what we tell them when we are watching the movie. Stick together, grab a weapon, don't split up. And when someone suggests splitting up, they immediately get clowned for it. And it flips the expectation that horror characters have to be clueless. And in the police scene, that is way deeper satire. In most horror films, the cops are usually the heroes, but in The Blackening, they don't even want to call them because they're scared and they don't know how it could go. And it's funny in the moment, but it also speaks to, like, very rare fear in black communities. And even the killer is a form of satire. This dude is out here deciding who's black enough to live or die, which is a direct jab at the way black identity is policed in real life by both society and sometimes even other black people. At the end of the day, The Blackening is a modern black satire at its best, and it makes you laugh, but it also forces you to think about the way black people have been represented in horror and in the media as a whole. It's flipping expectations, challenging Hollywood, and proving that black stories can be funny, scary, and smart at the same time.
And that's it for today's discussion on The Blackening. We explored how black performance theory and minstrelsy helps us understand the film's deeper themes and how it pushes back against outdated stereotypes. We saw how the film plays with horror tropes to challenge racist expectations and how it uses satire to highlight the resilience of black people.
Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and get that notification.